Thanks for tuning in to the Product Ops Summit. We really hope you're enjoying the event so far. We have even got more insights heading your way. All sessions are designed to be interactive and give you the chance to engage with our speakers. So come ready to get involved with your questions and comments. For all things product-led growth and product operations, don't forget to check out the PLA membership at productledalliance.com. Now sit back and enjoy the talk.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Product Operations Festival. First up, we have Christine. So I'm going to pass over to her, and she's going to be talking about maturing your product operations function. So over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, let's get over to slides. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate you spending the time with me today. As Ruth mentioned, we're going to talk about maturing your product operations function. I'll go through a bit of how we started here at Pendo about over 3 years ago at this point, and started product operations from scratch with just me, how we grew it, and then sort of some of the things that we've done to establish a really great framework for us to pass on some things and then move over to different things today in product operations. So, the early days of product operations involve a ton of testing, learning, iterating, and that's, the iterating always happens. That's just not in early days. But once a team has processes in place for things like release management, strong partnerships across the company, voice of customer, lots of data programs, it's time to think about how you can add even more value as a product operations person. So that's the stuff that we're going to be talking through today. I like to start with this. It's a pretty simple but effective image, which is product operations being in the center of the organization. And I truly believe, and I've said this many times, that we as product operations people are in the best seat in the house. We sit in the middle of the product team at its core. We are interacting all the time with revenue, and we're also participating in a lot of things with engineering to make sure that we are aligned to all of the great stuff coming out of the product team and the engineering team in general. And so our goal is always to align the organization, not just align the product team. So that's a pretty important fact. And so we look at this, and I showed this slide a couple of weeks ago during a talk at our own user conference. And I joined a couple of other product leaders to talk about how we are all maturing the product ops function after a couple of years of learning. And this kind of distills sort of what we've done here at Pendo, but it's how do we essentially start so that we can evolve over time. So on the left, there's just really basic product management function of collecting problems. My background is product. I know that there are a lot of folks in product operations that are not, that they do not have the product background, and that's completely fine. I think what it is you need to operate with a product mindset and have that product heart at some point. Collecting problems and solving them, figuring out the right ones to solve is core to product management. So the first thing to do is that, and then prioritize your pain and set your goals after looking at the problems that you're collecting from your internal and external customers. In the early days of product ops, it's all about building processes and systems and deploying them within the product team, across engineering, and then also out into the organization. And those things ultimately are felt by your customers. And I'll show you an example of that today, or in our early days that still goes on today. And then the next thing is, once you're finding that those systems and the processes you've created are working, it's really about championing them across your company and enabling others to make sure that that they know what exists, they know how to tap into any processes, they know where to go for certain things. And then you think about, okay, cool, we've established this. Now it's time for us to mature as a company or as a product organization. And this is a survey I put out on LinkedIn a while back, but it was a question around what signal or pain in your organization made you invest in the product operations role. And so fairly even split across these four, and I'm sure that there were more in the comments if I think back, but there was a clear lack of transparency. Release and beta management was just not tip-top shape. Training and enablement's always an issue as your company grows. And then product managers just not being able to focus on plan and innovation, which is a really big problem. And I truly believe product managers are going to be successful if they have the right systems around them that allow them to focus on plan, that allow them to focus time with customers and with engineers that are not firefighting. It's truly about understanding pain and innovating and making their product better. And so we have to figure out how we do that in product ops or using product operations. So for us here at Pendo, what we decided was to pick a quick win in the beginning. If I go back to this slide, lack of transparency was the number one issue that we had here when I was digging into the problems in our early days over 3 years ago. So what we did was we identified, great, there's a lack of transparency across the company. We are going to be growing at a rapid rate, within the next X amount of years, and we did. The pain that translated to was that we had a lot of unprepared teams. And those were customers of sales and success, and those are our internal customers. That's what we call them here. So we identified that the biggest opportunity for us was to bridge the gap between the product team and the revenue org. And how we were going to measure that was how ready is everybody to talk about the latest and greatest that's coming out of the product team? How ready is everybody to sell and support? And that required a ton of collaboration. But the first thing we did was we're like, okay, well, let's figure out how we get the information that they need and just make sure that that's front and center for them in a cadence that makes sense for us. So this on the right is what we call now our monthly product digest. This screenshot that I put up is completely fine. This is out in the market now. But what it does is it goes through all areas of our product that we have today and covers the top highlights of things that have been recently released, things that are coming up that are near term from the product team. And then one of the best things was how do people get trained up on it? Where do they go for learning and development internally? And how do they get customers ready for it? And this has been effective to the point where it's one of the few things that we've actually not matured so much or looked at and said, okay, we actually don't need this anymore. It's been great because it keeps people aligned, it keeps people ready, and it makes people really happy to know that this comes out on a certain basis. In the beginning, it was weekly, and now we've moved it over to monthly, and we're super intentional about the content we put in there, fully understanding that our sales and success teams have matured to a place where we need to mature this content and get them out. So what we ended up doing was, we took a look at all the systems we stood up, and then we decided, well, it's time to move them out of our hands. We've done this for about 3 years now, and we need to move it into the hands of others to help carry them forward and then continue to mature them, because there's so many other wonderful problems that require product operations folks to get involved that the company will benefit from and that our customers will benefit from. So we started looking again at our core customer, who is the product manager, and the problems that they were up against. And so still having that lens on focusing on giving product managers time to innovate and contribute to business goals, we realized that we needed a really strong system around growing adoption and retention within the product. And here's how we came up with our Center of Excellence focus and our product ops fueling product-led growth. So the first thing was, we got out of the processes. The second was establish and champion our Center of Excellence here at Pendo. And then the third thing is fueling that product-led growth through your product operations team. And so covering again, we just first needed to move from creating processes to driving decisions. And I love this. I put in some data from Product-Led Alliance in this presentation naturally. But this was around, is product operations just the same as program management? And when I think about the teams that we can shed some of the things to that we've stood frameworks around or systems around, the first that comes to mind is program management. And so one of the questions I get often, and lots of product ops people are talking about, is product operations and program management the same thing, or is it the same thing as product management? And the answer is no. The answer is for most people, no. As you can see on the left, 90% of folks are like, no, these things are actually very different. There are a couple where I think the roles are still a bit blurred, and that, from my experience and my conversations with customers and market, is around when roles are not clearly defined and when the company is at a certain stage where most people have to get in and just kind of get done what needs to be done to grow the company. And so this is a really interesting stat, and I really enjoyed reading this report. I took it a little bit further, and so what was really nice here was the question was the product ops role, specifically product and project management agnostic. And it's about the product team scaling. It's not about owning a specific project or program and tracking deadlines and deliverables. For the most part, you can see that an average of 7.8 folks are agreeing with that statement, right? And there's 48% here on the right, which is pretty high. Just under half of respondents agreed that the statement above is actually true. Product operations is about scaling and allowing your product team to do more once you've stood that system up. And so what's really nice is once you get to that place, and what we've seen here at Pendo is that you turn into being this trusted advisor to the product manager and ultimately to product leadership. You now have processes in place that you can hand off to other teams or to other people. You now have data and frameworks in place that you can start to lean on to help the product manager understand a different side of the picture or see a different picture from what they were in before when all of the things were being stood up. And this has been really great to watch. I've seen a couple customers do this as well. So how we got there too was one, getting rid of some of those things that we stood up, and two was then standing up and championing a center of excellence, an acronym here, COE. And for some folks, what is a center of excellence? So for us, it's a cross-functional team of key stakeholders who develop this big strategy and playbook for leveraging your analytics and guides across your organization. Naturally, I'm going to mention Pendo, right? This is what we do. We allow people to take a look at what users are doing in-app, monitor engagement once they've seen messaging or once they've used a certain area of the product, and then allow our customers to use guides and in-app walkthroughs to get customers to where they need to be and get them the help that they need to have. So an effective center of excellence develops a really good structure for consistent and scalable and effective use of the data, the product insights, and in-app engagement that helps drive your organization's company initiatives. And so this is how we tend to coach our customers around developing a center of excellence and putting the right folks in place. I also call this a community of practice across the different teams. So that's another term that you might hear me say throughout this presentation. There's a Pendo lead or the person who is responsible for the product that you're using to drive engagement and get insights. And they're responsible for overseeing all usage of your platform. They also help establish goals and key outcomes and metrics to measure success for respective product areas. And so I've got somebody focused in particular on our feedback product, and she sits with our leadership team in feedback and goes through their KPIs and what they're trying to measure success around or push the needle on for 3 to 6 months out. And she's the person that they're going to make sure that they're tracking towards goals, or if there's anything that needs to be stood up, she's that first point of contact. Then you've got a technical expert, and they own the setup. They make sure that Pendo's installed or your analytics software is installed and maintained so that it's not getting out of control. Then you've got a SWAT team lead, and this is the lead for cross-functional team responsible for metadata, tagging. So again, using Pendo, building segments to make sure you're digging in and getting richer data based on all of the traction that's coming into your app. Creating dashboards. We create dashboards based off of brand new features or product areas. And then report templates. So using our data explorer, what do we care about tracking outside of our dashboards? They also do kind of regular audit and cleanup of these things. So making sure things are named correctly, making sure that things are tagged correctly, and that old reports are out of the system, just to make sure we have good data hygiene. Then you've got the other side of it. So you get the analytics side where you understand the behavior, and then you've got the side where folks are looking at how they're engaging with customers in app. And so a guide SWAT team lead is another person that's on this. And so they're responsible for leading a cross-functional team that creates guide layouts, themes for those guides, and develops a request process. Internally here at Pendo, we call ours the IGST. For those who know us, we've talked about it with our customers. We've helped them create it. It's an internal guide SWAT team. And they're responsible for going through a process where design checks, product checks, and marketing checks to make sure that there's consistency in what you're putting out to your customers and that you're not overloading them, because customers don't want to have too much coming at their face in their app when they're just trying to get their stuff done. And then you've got department leads. So these are just leaders from cross-functional teams like product, UX, CX, and marketing, and they are there to represent departmental goals and priorities. Going back to that first, the first box here, or the first rectangle, they're closely partnered with the Pendo lead or the person who's running the Center of Excellence. So what we end up doing after we create this Center of Excellence is we focus on administering. So again, the Pendo lead and the technical expert are there. Then the analytics side of it, which are these three roles that we talked about, and then the guide side of it. So all of them kind of are focused on those particular areas. Okay. So this is putting it into practice here a little bit, and product ops focuses energy in the box that's kind of like a hot pink there. So we set goals and KPIs that drive action across the product and across the organization. We're working with product management and their KPIs, obviously, to help increase product adoption. And so we end up looking at how we do that for both a micro level and a macro level. So if we're thinking of a feature that has been put in app a year ago and we're not really seeing much engagement or adoption there, how do we help drive that adoption with the product manager? Or if there's an entire area of the product where we've heavily invested, how do we sit down and think about product-led growth strategies between our marketing team, with our customer success team and the PM to drive more engagement in app and help that area go up? Or figure out if there's something that we missed the mark on and see if there's data that we need to pass back to the product team to say, this is something that we need to take a look at. Possibly engineering needs to get involved here and make some changes on the app so that this experience is better for our customers. So we're basically across these three key partners here: product management, customer success, and user experience, to help determine, with the data that we've stood up through our Center of Excellence, what the right moves are and who should be brought in at what point here. And this is how we end up fueling product-led growth. So another wonderful data point from the survey was, how much does product ops play a part in successful product-led growth? And lo and behold, magic, 8.6 is the average, where we're seeing that folks truly believe that product ops teams do play a critical part in successful product-led growth. And we do know that today, a lot of companies are trying to figure out, with the state of the world, the economy, how do we do more with what we have? And making sure that the right humans are in the right seats and that you're placing efforts where they need to be in order to help grow your business. And so making sure that you've got a strong product ops partner within your product team is a really critical move for lots of companies today, focusing on that product-led growth strategy. That person is responsible for a ton, but they're also partnering with the product manager and acting still as that extension of them, so that they're still eyes and ears on the ground, and then still using that data to help push their growth strategy forward for their application. And for me, I feel there's always an opportunity to drive the product-led motion. This is just something that we truly believe here at Pendo as well. And do more with what you currently have, again, is the theme. So think about the amount of times that you've seen your team put out features and move on to the next best thing. The shiny objects can stay shiny if you put the right energy and time into keeping them that way. So it's important to think about the resources that you currently have that drive product-led motion for your business, and ultimately grow usage and retention. Okay, and so I'm gonna go into a use case that we had here at Pendo, and this was a great collaboration effort across folks on my product ops team and our marketing team and our success team. So first, we start with the data. This is our own, a couple of views from our own NPS tool. So we recognize that the accounts without an integration at some point, this was their NPS score. And within that same time frame, we looked at the ones who did have an integration, and they were at 48, which was really interesting. So we dug into that a bit and realized, okay, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a lack of awareness or usage in general. But you can form many hypotheses. You just have to make sure that you're sticking to something really simple in order to dig into it and figure out what to do next with your team, because you can start to go into many different directions. So we said maybe it was lack of awareness. Maybe it's just that our customers didn't know where to go to understand how to get an integration set up. And so what we ended up doing was partnering with many teams, like I mentioned. So we recognized we needed to drive awareness up around integrations in Pendo. And this was a multi-step guide campaign that we did in partnership with customer success and product marketing to drive visibility and awareness in that area, specifically in that area in the product. And so my team essentially was looking at the data, stood up what we needed to do to target the right folks and launch inside the product with our own guides. We launched it on September 1st. And so far we're seeing 11.7% conversion, which is pretty nice compared to our other adoption guides. Conversion for us here in this sense means users who viewed the integrations catalog after viewing the guide. And this was a Slack directly from someone on my team, Chase. And so what we did here was the product ops team is still championing everything that we're doing in product across the organization. And that's because we continue to drive alignment across the company. It's not just, again, driving alignment within R&D. It's making sure that you're championing all you're doing for internal awareness, because that ultimately impacts the customer experience. So we empower our sales and success teams and the rest of the organization with the right information so they're prepared to support customers with questions. This is actually standard. So my team, for brand new releases, for features, for different areas of the app, or for something fun that we've done that we want to make sure we're championing, we'll say, here's what's going on. Here's why it's awesome. Here's something new. Here's what you can do with it. And then in most cases, it's how do you get trained up on it? And then how do you enable your customers on it, which is really sweet. Well, after all of that, you need to make sure that you're monitoring progress, and you do that together, again, across your team, your entire team for your center of excellence, focused on that area of the product. And so what we saw was when we launched our new integrations catalog, which was September 1st, we saw almost 10,000 views with a 9.3 conversion rate at that time. I just pulled the number from the other slide, more recent, with an average of 50-second read time, which was pretty cool. And we just continue to monitor that and keep it on one of our dashboards more front and center, so that we can continue to help the company or understand how we're helping to increase visibility and adoption here. Okay, and I'm just going to go back to the beginning of this presentation just to tie it up. But while things can shift, what I want folks to take away from this, because I know that people on this call or on this webinar are on different sides of the spectrum on your product ops journey, right? And so some are very new, some are somewhere in the middle trying to figure out how to mature it and make yourselves that advisor I mentioned. And some are like, we got this, right? But while things can shift in terms of what product ops owns across industries and companies, it's really important to remember that certain things are consistent. Being the connective tissue between the teams is the principle that grounds us here at Pendo. It's what I anchor my teams to, or my team to. Product ops has the ability to speak many different languages across the business. We can speak to sales and understand their pain points. We know how to help customer success really quickly. We understand what product managers are going through, and we fully understand what engineers need to make sure that they can move fast, right? And so what's the best part of that, and all of those folks that we work with, is we end up being this natural extension of the product manager. And that puts us, again, in the best seat in the house. It means we're really easily able to empower revenue, engineering, and product with relevant information to do their best in their roles. So whether it's voice of customer and usage or adoption data to any of these parties, especially product and engineering, or technical knowledge and training to revenue teams, we truly are in the middle, and we truly have the ability to make an impact across companies, especially driving that product-led motion. It's a seat that folks need to lean into a bit more to help drive better business outcomes for our company and a better experience ultimately for our customers. So use it wisely, always harness and lean into the data, and make sure that every time that you are learning something new and using out something new, that you're sharing that across the company and you're championing all the things that you're doing, both within product and outside into your organization. And that is my talk today. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can always ask me questions there. I also post a ton of content, both on product-led, three things: product-led, product ops, and product management in general. Enjoy giving back to the community. So feel free to reach out with any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. We have lots of questions in the chat. So let's get stuck into a few of those. Someone mentioned they're interested to learn more about different types of systems used. I'm not sure if that's a question or if that's been answered. But is there anything you wanted to just add on to that?
Yeah, the way I used the word systems in this conversation was around standing up a system around the product manager so that they've got processes stood up when they have voice of customer things that we need to look at, when they've got escalations coming in, anything that requires more roadmap rigor and getting that out to the organization, less about the actual system and tool and more about the processes and framework in order to stand up the system around the product ops person.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question, what would you advise to keep the balance between revenue, product, and engineering? Do you feel establishing this central position in an organization can be done as soon as the product ops department is created? If so, how?
Oh yeah, I'll share that. For us, we actually first focus on the relationship between product and the revenue org. Because we actually have a very strong agile team that's aligning product and engineering. And so because that existed and because they've already had a system in place to make sure work is moving along and we're planning, we decided to focus our energy on making sure that we were that connective tissue first between the revenue org and the product team. Then actually we realized that a lot of the information we were collecting from revenue was really relevant and important for the engineers to hear firsthand. And so that's when we started to mature it a bit and say, how do we then bring in the engineering team and bring all these parties together? So there's no right or wrong answer. I feel like it's bandwidth that you have on your team. I feel like it's the skill set that is that the product managers have and their ability to tackle the amount of problems. But we started with one, made sure it felt really good, and then we moved into all three.
Awesome, thank you so much. This next question has been very popular. I'm curious as to what you mean by you've matured the product digest enough that it's no longer needed. Can you expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I did misspeak. I didn't say, or I didn't think I said matured it enough that we no longer need it. We matured it, and it's one of the things that still exists today. One of the few things that has not gone away from a process and a systems perspective. So apologies if it came off wrong, but the product digest is the one of the few things that from its day one inception, we are still carrying it through. We just matured it to a point where it's no longer weekly, it is monthly.
Awesome. And again, lots of questions, so really great. Keep them coming. Another very popular one is, how do you educate people internally about what product ops is and isn't?
Sure. First, you have to, well, in the early days, it was really hard, right? Because especially here, company was growing really quickly. It was just repeat. I was able to establish really strong, or I truly believe in establishing really strong relationships across the company. So the first thing I did was go on a listening tour when I realized we were going to do product operations and make sure that folks knew that there was going to be some partner in product that's going to help them be more prepared and get them what they need. What that did was that established key partners for me to lean into, because I can't go out and have one-on-one conversations all the time. Those key partners all have direct reports or orgs. And so what we did was we established core decks or central decks around, this is what product operations will be doing. This may change, this may mature, and it has. But this is where we currently are today, and this is how you partner with us. An example was raising risk due to the product, right? What processes exist so that you can do that on your side as a customer success manager? What does that look like on the product side? What happens after we get that data? A lot of times our internal partners are really excited to hear what's going on around the company, but there's always an element of, and this is for anyone, anywhere, what's in it for me? Why do I need to know this? And so making it transparent what you're doing with their time that they're giving you and the data that they're giving you, any effort you're asking them to put in is really critical. And so I would say in the beginning, we would have to re-educate with our major leaders and their teams probably once a quarter, to make sure that it was well understood. So baking that in early was really important. At some point during the pandemic, things got a little bit interesting. We also skyrocketed in growth. So it was more about centralizing all these assets and reminding these leaders to help us get the word out async, and then continuing to do live enablement here and there.
Awesome, thank you so much. So the next question, again, very popular. When you did this use case, did you experience any notion that you were stepping on the PM's toes?
Yeah, Pam, I think that question was around the adoption of or awareness of the integrations, I'm thinking. Nope. We did not see any pushback from the product managers. They were really excited that we were helping because they were leaning on us to do a ton of the in-app engagement, the data collection, understanding whether what they built was really valuable or where we've placed it is really valuable, because they already had other things going on. So for them, it was about being able to focus on more innovation and other work within that area of the product. And they were like, nope. And that has been the experience that we luckily have had with product operations here, is that PMs are trying to focus on innovation and building a better product. And if there's somebody there with them that helps them grow in their area of the product and then raises to them, this is just not working, it's got to go, or we have to do something else that requires engineering, that's where the balance comes in. And then we turn into, okay, let's figure out how we plan this better. We did not have any issues with it.
Okay, great. Smashing through a lot of questions, so we're doing really well. What are the core components of Pendo's product ops function?
Yeah, sure. So we have, and this is after we've matured, we have a readiness group or a readiness function, and that focuses on empowering and aligning the organization. Again, what's coming out on the roadmap, what's new, how to get trained up. We partner with our enablement team on all of that, making sure that central asset's there. We do a lot of the technical trainings. We are responsible for pulling together basically product content that's happened within a quarter or within a certain amount of time so that everybody feels good and can go talk to customers about it. And that's all about readiness, right? We have to make sure people feel prepared. The second is adoption and analytics. And so that is what I talked through with the use case, is standing up that center of excellence, the community of practice, and making sure that you're partnering with with the folks within your org to understand their goals, right? We partner with either our general manager or our group product managers or leads to make sure that we see what's going on within their area over the next 6 months or so and say, okay, what are you most worried about? How can we help with certain metrics? And most of it's around adoption, usage, and retention. But we align first with the general manager, and that requires that center of excellence analytics function and the adoption piece and managing all of the engagement, both in and out of app with your partners. And the third is systems. And that exists. That's one of the ones that we've matured a little bit again today. I didn't talk about that one, but that's about making sure that our customers are good to go on Pendo, that the systems that integrate with Pendo are talking to each other. An example is Salesforce and Pendo, and that we have the right connections with any other systems to make sure that data is going where it needs to go, because we cannot do that second piece without that, which is the analytics and adoption part.
Awesome. We have time for just a couple more questions. So what would be one most important and single advice for a growing startup with a single product ops person trying to develop product ops function in the organization?
Prioritize your pain. I started as one single product ops person here and went on that listening tour and realized that we had a ton of pain, but a lot of this, what I call sub pain, would have been solved with tackling the transparency problem first and testing out a couple of things. And so if you're able to go and develop those relationships with your partners across the company, product ops is not just to serve the product manager, it's a servant leader across the entire organization. Now, if you're finding that the pain is mostly with product managers, then obviously you're going to prioritize standing up systems around them. Luckily, the transparency problem that we had served both the product manager in that it took away they didn't have to worry about fielding one-off questions or doing one-off calls anymore, or not anymore, sorry. It took down the load significantly, and it also served our revenue team. So prioritize your pain, build your relationships, and prioritize your pain. That's your most important thing to do when you're standing it up.
Awesome. So next question, how closely brackets, or do you think close brackets product ops is related to the COO role?
I don't know. I still have to think about that. I think it's still shaping up. It's a little early to say. It obviously has very common operational elements. And so that is a question that I do get a ton. I think that because it's so focused on on optimizing efficiency for the product team today, it's a little bit hard to say a central COO role is as closely related. I do think that there are similarities. I don't have a final answer for that one.
Awesome. What are the key skills a person needs to be successful at product operations?
Yeah. Empathy. Oh man, empathy is the number one soft skill that you need to have to be successful in product, but especially product operations, because you are dealing with internal and external customers. So really understanding that they all have things going on and you are not going to get their time 100%. So you have to figure out what the right balance is. And that means you need to be empathetic to what's happening in their world. I would say analytical. You don't guru, a data science guru or analytics guru, but you need to be able to understand the importance of data and understand how to read into it in order to either make decisions based off of it or recommend something that will impact the product org. And super organized and communicative. I would say communication skills and being organized are very critical in this role, because what can happen very early on, and it did happen here, is that you can be pulled into so many different things. And so you need to be organized to show what value you're bringing, to show how people can plug into the system you've created and be able to constantly communicate that out.
Awesome. I think we have time for just one final question. There is, however, another one in the chat, but of course, I can direct people to your LinkedIn and carry on the conversation. But final question, do you have job descriptions for product ops positions, and do you have a career path for a new person starting as a junior product ops?
We do have a job description for product ops. Alexander, if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I can share that with you. I'm actually thinking of figuring out how we can make that more public, because I do get asked that quite a bit. And then career path, we actually did come up with our career frameworks. I don't know if that's something that we are able to share outside, but I can at least share the ladder that we have created within product operations that helps set people up for success.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Apologies if your question didn't get answered, but please do reach out to Christine on LinkedIn. She is more than happy, I'm sure, to continue the conversation. But yeah, thank you to everyone for tuning in, and hopefully see you at the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Every company, big or small, runs on software. Whether you're building software or buying it, Pendo is software that makes your software better. Using analytics to understand behavior across your apps, your team can easily identify how users are interacting with your product so you can provide the best experience possible. Pendo also helps you use this quantitative data along with collected qualitative data to help you understand how your users feel so you can deliver the best product for your customers. Comprehensive data collected through analytics can be used to create personalized in-app guides that can lead users through your software, assisting greater adoption of the product, and provide a more intuitive user experience. With robust segmentation, Pendo helps you understand individual behavior so you can deliver communication in context to specific groups of users. Hearing directly from users about their experience provides deep insight into what works and what doesn't. With feedback, you can centralize all user requests and prioritize them so that your developers are focused on building the best version of your product. Pendo is the only complete product platform that combines feedback, targeted in-app guides, and analytics, so you can identify and address pain points in the user journey to ensure greater engagement. Whether your users are customers or employees, the power of Pendo is available across web and mobile applications without the need for engineering. Pendo, software that makes your software better.